Well, one of the hardest things to do in the NFL is to make an already good roster even better. There are financial difficulties as part of this because as players get good, they get paid. As players get paid, you run up against the salary cap. You do have to jettison some talent. The 49ers had to jettison about $80 million worth of talent this offseason. And when you have to do that, you're up against the cap. Making a team better is a tricky proposition. You have to very, very precisely hit on your draft picks and your signings. And the 49ers didn't really have premium draft picks this past season. Their first pick was late in the third round, and they selected Jair Brown, the safety out of Penn State. And there's a chance that Jair Brown's going to contribute immediately. He had a good OTAs, several interceptions, will be the third 49er safety. They're going to run some three safety sets. But as far as true starter level, instant impact, somebody that can make an already good roster better from day one, you can't really count on that, right? Jair Brown's still going to be, to some extent, a developmental piece. You have to turn to free agency to be able to make the splash that the 49ers required. And they have turned to free agency, and last year they turned to a trade for Christian McCaffrey to pick up two star players who are not on the roster at this time of 2022. We are 12 days away from 49ers training camp, and last year they did not have Javon Hargrave, and they did not have Christian McCaffrey at this point. So I think at least along the first string, the 49ers, in the midst of that tight cap situation, have managed to make their roster better. Now, it's not cheap. There are $121 million scheduled to hit the cap between both Hargrave and Christian McCaffrey over the next 4 years. So when you spend that kind of money to bring in impact players, well, they better be true impact players. They better have a transformative effect on the football team. Otherwise, you're just walking on a treadmill and you're wasting your money as you're doing it. The 49ers committed to bringing in the best of the best that they could that was available here over the past 2 years. They spent a ton of draft picks on Christian McCaffrey, who is the best multifaceted offensive weapon in the game that's home at the running back position. For sure, in Kyle Shanahan's system, he fits that thing like a glove. And then they brought in Javon Hargrave, who was the top defensive tackle available on the market this past season. There were internal discussions, and I wrote about them in this piece up on The Athletic. There were internal discussions about how much the 49ers should spend to address some of their needs and weaknesses this offseason. And the best anecdote comes from John Lynch's house. Jed York was over at his house in early March. And John Lynch went up to Jed and said, you know what? I think that we need to spend money to make this roster better. And Jed turned around and said, well, make sure that you spend money on an impact player. If defensive tackle is the position that you want to fill, I don't want the third best defensive tackle in the market because that's still going to be really expensive. It'll be probably 80% of the top price for the third best player. No, try to go get the best player on the market. We pay 100% of the price, but you could take something out of next year's budget. We'll stay cap compliant and make sure that we get the impact that we need. That's what Jed York told John Lynch. And John Lynch was thinking the same thing. He said, well, Jed, I've got great news for you because we found an impact player. He's the best defensive tackle on the market, and he's the guy up on the screen in Javon Hargrave. So I have to say this. The 49ers are all in. They're pushing the chips to the middle of the table. Again, $121 million combined between Hargrave and McCaffrey in cap liabilities over the next 4 years. The 49ers want to win a title now. The biggest weakness on this football team last year was the defensive tackle position. The 49ers had only 3 sacks from their defensive tackles combined over the course of the whole year. Well, Javon Hargrave, you see him right now, he had 11 on his own last season. And I think that this is the most staggering stat and the one that should make the 49ers most optimistic. This is defensive plus minus. How a team performs as a defensive unit in terms of expected points added per play when a player is on the field versus when he is off of it. The furthest right column is the difference in performance between on and off. You want something that's higher in the negatives here for defensive players. Look at Javon Hargrave, number 2 impact in the NFL. A lot of other good players on this list, behind only Derek Brown and only a decimal point behind him, 0.26 for Derek Brown, negative 0.25 for Javon Hargrave. So Hargrave was extremely impactful for Philadelphia last season. And the question is he going to be as impactful for the 49ers as he was in the Philadelphia context? Between the regular season and the playoffs, if you include the entire run, Hassan Reddick, the Philadelphia edge rusher, had more sacks than anybody. He had 20 sacks last year. That was even more than Nick Bosa. Bosa led in the regular season. Hassan Reddick had a career year when you include the playoffs. You take a look at this and you see, well, Hassan Reddick probably benefited significantly from Javon Hargrave. That defense, when Hargrave was on the field, was awesome. In fact, when Hargrave was on the field, between him and Fletcher Cox, the Eagles were the best defense in the league. The 49ers were the best defense in the league overall. Hargrave played 63.5% of the snaps, though. So when he wasn't on the field as one of those big defensive tackles who needs a breather every once in a while, the Eagles dropped off a little bit. EPA per play went off the field, 0.07, not as good as negative 0.17. Again, massive delta between those two when Hargrave was on the field. He helped Hassan Reddick a lot. The question is, will Javon Hargrave help Nick Bosa and the 49ers' other defensive linemen in the same fashion? San Francisco's bet is yes. That's why they paid him up to $84 million over the next 4 years. They think that he could have the same outsized impact on San Francisco's defense as he did in Philadelphia. Meanwhile, the 49ers have already gotten their money's worth, at least in one season, from Christian McCaffrey. He's got to continue delivering so that remains true. But just take a look at the 49ers offense before and after Christian McCaffrey last year. There is a mistaken notion that it was Brock Purdy that turned the 49ers offense into a juggernaut. It wasn't Brock Purdy. It was Christian McCaffrey. He was the variable where you could see a difference before and after. Jimmy Garoppolo was just as successful with Christian McCaffrey as was Brock Purdy. And I'm not taking anything away from Garoppolo or Purdy. Both quarterbacks were very competent. Both quarterbacks got the job done last season. But without McCaffrey, it looked a whole lot different. Yards per play, net yards per pass attempt. I think probably the best measure is going to be DVOA, which is right here, because that's, when you look at points per game, that's going to be reliant on factors like how many takeaways did your defense generate, and the 49ers defense generated many takeaways over the back half of the last season versus the front half. So we look at DVOA, defense adjusted value over average. It's a more sophisticated stat. 49ers offense was number 21 before McCaffrey took a full-time job. Their offense moved to number 2 after he took a full-time job. Passing offense from number 15 to number 1 by a country mile. Look at this passing DVOA. 58.8% above league average. Awesome. They were the number 26 run offense before McCaffrey, the number 6 run offense after him. So the CMC boost was real. We talk about the 49ers' only path of advancement. The only way to make a good roster better is to add true impact players. Well, Christian McCaffrey added an awesome impact that we illustrate through this right here. And Javon Hargrave was very, very impactful, the second most impactful defensive player in the year by plus minus. The 49ers trying to get in on that. In my article, which I'm putting back up on the screen right now, you could take a look at the link in the description. I'm going to take and copy and paste this link and put it into the comment section as well. In my article, I discuss that the 49ers might not be done. And I've talked about this before. Jed York at the owners' meeting said, last year we weren't necessarily looking for a running back, but we had the capital to make a trade, and Christian McCaffrey became available. We know that John Lynch talked to Scott Fitterer, Carolina's GM, after the 49ers played the Panthers and were impressed with McCaffrey in early October. Well, that set the trade wheels into motion. And then the 49ers said, you know what? The Rams are in on this guy. We don't want the Rams to get Christian McCaffrey. Let's make sure that we outbid them. Ended up being the best move the 49ers made last year. And they might not be done this year this season, because they have a first-round pick again. They have a second-round pick. They have a third-round pick. The 49ers draft capital has been restocked after they traded so much of it away to pick Trey Lance in 2021. If somebody comes available, a veteran that the 49ers think can impact their team in the same way they think that McCaffrey and Javon Hargrave are going to impact their team this year, don't be surprised that the 49ers make another move. Because this team has enough money for an A-list star core to continue growing. As long as the 49ers continue drafting well to fill the margins at a reasonable cost, as long as they keep on scouring bargain bin free agency and succeeding in doing so, there's a tremendous, tremendous benefit if Chris Kasarik, your defensive line coach, can transform Clelin Ferrell's career the same way that he transformed Arden Key's career, because you're only playing Ferrell like $1 million a year, right? If the 49ers can continue filling out the glue pieces of their roster at a budget, with the cap growing every single season, they can continue increasing their budget for A-list players. So don't be shocked if they move again at the trade deadline, but let's just not predict that they're going to do anything right now because we don't know how the season is going to go. The bottom line is their only path of advancement is through impact players. You have to get guys that move the needle. And that's what this article is about. The 49ers searching for players to move the needle. 49ers have officially announced their training camp open schedule. Why don't I get this up on the screen for you guys? They've even announced Dwight Clark Day. Nice. Okay, here it is. I'm going to tweet this out so that we have it on the screen. 49ers training camp. You guys can watch me work here for just a couple minutes because this is new news. Put this on up here for everybody. It just came in an email. The 49ers have announced their 2023 open training. Here, the portion of their 2023 training camp schedule that'll be open to fans. Boom. All right, now let's get this up on the screen for everybody. Here you have it. '49ers training camp schedule for fans. Make it a little bit bigger. All right, so Wednesday, July 26th is the first practice of camp. That's less than 2 weeks away. We're 12 days away from report day today. Thursday, July 27th, another open practice. Then it looks like Friday will be a practice, I would think, Friday, July 28th, but that's going to be closed to fans. It seems that Saturday, July 29th is off for the 49ers. And then on Sunday, July 30th, back together weekend. That means that it is the celebration of the NFL getting back together after the long off season. Another open practice on Monday, July 31st. And I'm also wondering if back together weekend means the 49ers practice in Levi Stadium on July 30th. I haven't confirmed that. They might also do that on Monday, August 7th, which is 8/7 Dwight Clark Day, 87 Day. The 31st and the 1st of August are open practices to the public. So that's a 3-day stretch. A day off on Wednesday, August 2nd, and then another 3-day stretch, August 3rd, August 4th, and August 5th, before a day off on Sunday, August 6th, and 87 Day, Dwight Clark Day, on Monday, August 7th. The 49ers will then fly to Las Vegas on Wednesday, August 9th. There are joint practices with the Las Vegas Raiders on August 10th and August 11th, Thursday and Friday, a preseason game against the Raiders on Sunday, August 13th. Only 9 training camp practices open this year to the fans, but that I think part of the reason there is that the 49ers have joint practices with the Raiders in week 1 of the preseason. Normally, the 49ers have had joint practices with another team in week 2 of the preseason, not week 1. So I think that probably constricts the schedule for open practices during training camp. So again, these are the 9 practices that are open as announced right now. Anyway, let's go back to the piece that I wrote. Let's make sure that you check this one out. Impact players, that's the 49ers' path of advancement. Enjoy it. Javon Hargrave, Christian McCaffrey, these guys can make a big splash. McCaffrey already did last year, and it's definitely worth examining how the 49ers are building this roster. Everybody take care.